Thank you.
Life is joyful, life is marvelous, life is miraculous. Is that why you got this name, Mast Kalanda? I believe a wise man in this building has given her this name.
So, Mr. Thank you. Thank you so much. Firstly, thank you very much for having me here. It's a privilege and an honor, and I feel really humbled to be amongst such a senior audience today. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart. This name, Mast Kalandar, was given to me by Mr. Gyanchandani, Tarang's father-in-law. He sees me in the morning walking, listening to bhajans. Sometimes if I feel like singing, I'll sing. I lie down in the grass. I do my yoga there. I think I pretty much dance to my own tune. And ages ago, he introduces me to everybody as Mast Kalandar. So that's how I got this name from him. And I was just sharing it with him, and I think it kind of really resonates with the way I live my life. Really must in myself. When you talk of life is miraculous, life is possible, life is joyful, I'm going to, before really elaborating as to why my website has that banner, I'm going to read out a poem as to where the genesis of it comes from. There's a poem I've written. Hidden deep in the core, the earth is full of treasures. Diamond, rubies, emeralds, gold, silver, oil and more. Drill deep into the dark, curious and trusting, exploring and piercing through the crust to discover the wealth. Wake up to your explorer, pierce through the mind, to look deep into the heart and discover that hidden treasure of love. Stay alert to the possibility, never knowing when and where the search rewards, with precious words of wisdom, that love is in you, that love is in me, that love exists in all. We are all manifestations of nature. So, really, when my journey started, my whole journey of transformation, what I discovered was life is so possible, it's so much full of magic. Having thoughts changing, having the power to change our thoughts, having the power to transform our emotions, anger to compassion, and that whole capacity. Having the ability to discover new expressions from, I started out as a chartered accountant, coach to author to speaker. There's no end to what we can keep doing. And similarly, it's new relationships, new communities. The world for me is like a vast canvas. It's like a playground where there is no dearth of how much to explore, discover, learn, meet, new. There's so much freshness and joy. And of course, the biggest joy in my life is my husband and my 2 sons and our little Laika. There's more I expand the love within, the more I experience the love outside. I mean, how much more magic can you want in life? So for me, that's why life is completely just full of magic.
Mast Kalanda was a title given to you, or a name given to you. If you had to think of one for yourself, which song would come to you?
I used to love this song, Suhana Safar or Ye Mausam Haseen. Hame dar hai hum kho na jaye kahin. Because that's really, for me, it's, I love walking in nature. I can just walk and look at the flowers, look at the leaves. It's creation at its most wonderful best.
Wonderful. Okay, so the first turning point in her life, as they say, every person gets one jhatka, an apocalyptic moment, which becomes kind of your encounter with 0 hour. This lady is in Singapore. And Singapore is the city where accidents never happen. But of all the things, the strangest thing happens to her. She is stung by hundreds of bees. Over 100 bees sting her. And that was her confrontation with the zero hour.
She's a sweet person.
Thank you. Honestly, I could do away with the bees.
How is that your first turning point in this journey of yours?
So, you go through many transitions, but this was something where it was a wake up. Having an encounter, a near-death experience where, so I was highly allergic and my cords were shutting down, and I drove myself after getting stung to the hospital. And in Singapore, hand on the horn, I just broke through every signal. I till date don't know how I survived all of it. And I think that is what made me sit up. I didn't have an accident. I didn't get stopped by police, given it's Singapore. I didn't get a challan. I got it for all the stupid things, but I didn't get it for this. And even despite all the bees, I was grateful. I survived it. And I think, and that's where it was an existential crisis for me. Made me really sit up and ask myself, so I had been working, got married, worked, this, that, took a sabbatical for the boys and home. You go through your changes in and out. And suddenly I started looking at myself 20 years, 30 years later. And it was like, hey, I don't want to have a life where I'm doing nothing with myself. My boys would have grown up. He will continue to be busy. I think the fear of becoming a nagging woman or a nagging mother-in-law scared the shit out of me. So anyway, jokes aside, it was really a moment of asking myself, how will I feel valued and in control of my life? Because I think that was a moment of feeling totally out of control. So that is where I said, okay, what can I do to take charge of my life? And one of the things that I recognized was that I had suppressed my feelings somewhere in the humdrum of life. So I said, okay, let me start listening to what do I want. And from there is where I first started exploring various entrepreneurial options, and all failed. Ek ke baad ek bombed it fully. But what each one did for me was it totally helped me understand the big learner, the curious learner in me. I think somewhere in life you lose that also. You think, I had this very big crown on my head. I'm a chartered accountant. So I could not think of doing anything else because I thought I'd got the ultimate crown. So firstly, confronting that was a big one for me, that I need to look at myself beyond my CA and look at all my passions. Went into all that, and I think that's where I would say the confrontation, the inner confrontation started, the inner inquiry, questioning. So what that phase did was, it helped me understand who I'm not. Right? When everything failed, so who I'm not.
Understanding A in verse is sometimes more important than understanding A. And as you strip off what is not relevant, then you kind of start seeing who the core you is. So she did a lot of experiments, and as she candidly said, a number of them failed, and then she came back to India. So here is a chartered accountant in the world of finance, finds an opportunity in the world of banking at Kotak. In a sense, that was her second turning point in this journey to Mast Kalandar.
So
at Kotak, you observed a certain vacuum. What triggered that? Talk us through that.
So I had the opportunity to work at global organizations like Arthur Andersen, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the things, and I'd worked in Delhi, Bombay, Hong Kong, Singapore. So, and with clients who were therefore cross-cultural. So I'd had a fairly diverse experience of working with leaders from different cultures. When I came here, one of the things that I noticed was that while people were very bright and very successful, the respect for each other was missing. That was something that really struck out. their insecurities get played out, very typical corporate life, silos, competitive, jealousies, cornering your clients, all the very not sharing information. So going off for coffee and you're waiting, going off for lunch, you're waiting. So very typical everyday behavior, which is not unknown to many of us. But I think that is what hit me. I think there was some kind of an anger that came out. I need to fix this. And that's how I said there's a gap. Nobody is focusing on development of leaders. Now, in all the international organizations where I've worked, training and people development was very much a part of the way you grew in the organization. From the day I joined, it was a 2-week course and so on and so forth. At every stage, you were always sent for the next training program. I saw there was nothing like that happening here. Technical training loads, personal development and training none. And that's how I literally 6 months and I quit and I said, I'm doing this.
You could have thought of n number of things. You worked in firms like Anderson. You could have thought of n number of things, consulting, training, blah, 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 blah. Coaching was not something that was considered big 20 years ago. How do you think of coaching? I can think of coaching in Rahul Dravid terms, but coaching in corporate world.
So, firstly, when I jump into the unknown, I never know what I'll discover. But I have the capacity to take that deep dive of faith. When my intuition tells me this is it, I don't take even a second to decide and take that leap. And I think that the first one of the very big leaps I took was marrying him. It was literally a first meeting decision for me. And similarly, whether it was choosing chartered accountancy or leadership development, coaching was absolutely unknown. Nobody knew what I was talking. Actually, people were either intimidated or reticent around me, or all kinds of funny things would happen. I wasn't going to do anything to anyone, but problem was there was no language. I myself didn't have the language to explain it. And people were absolutely clueless. They saw people development as fixing it. HR ने उसको भेज दिया, इसको train कर दो, इसको fix कर दो. Now you can't just, it's not a puppy that I'll train and fix. So even my puppy I can't fix. So I used to really struggle with the concept of transformation. Now what happened was that I went through my own realization due to my mentor coach, and that's how I fell into from leadership development into coaching. Met her by again Providence. She put me onto this, she coached me, and that kind of opened a huge light bulb in me. And through my few courses of self-transformation, what I started doing was, so I I said, okay, let's just start. I didn't know where to start. I said, okay, maybe it's training, maybe it's whatever, let's just start. And I put up a website, I got a branding agency to help me out. I started out and I started sharing my story of transformation. And I think that clicked with people. The more I shared about myself as to how I went for this program, and I discovered that, listen, I had to stop blaming the world. The world was not responsible for my happiness. It wasn't responsible for where I was standing in life today. It wasn't responsible for the noise in my head. That was, for me, a very big shift, because all that had, wo tumne kiya, ye hua, wo hua, all because of you. A very, I would say, a very, not all, we all do it, but I think even more so as a woman, you blame the whole household for it. And I had to stop doing that, because once I said, okay, I am going to take charge of who I am and the world is not responsible for me, it was no more a blame game. So, and I started looking into, so each step that I went into saying, okay, how do I take charge of myself, and sharing that with people. I got my client, and I got my first client was coincidentally the person, the agency CEO who did my branding. So that gave me a story. So I shared that story. I got the next client, shared more stories. So I became the storyteller of how transformation is possible, And that's how it worked, just kept coming.
When we think of coaching, we come from a society where if you go to a counselor, people think there's something wrong with you. How do you get people to break away from this societal block to say, yes, I need coaching?
So, firstly, coaching, yes, people have a block, I recognize that, and a lot is due to lack of awareness more than anything. Coaching is a process of self-discovery. That's it. If I had to really put it in a nutshell, it's a process of self-discovery. Helps you develop self-awareness, helps you develop self-leadership, and unleash your potential. Now, when I give you all the positives of it, and it helps you ultimately be happy, who doesn't want all of it? So it's really finding what does it do for you and talking about that rather than anything to do with the mind or the mental state. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist or anything. So I clearly am not in that realm at all.
But you're not just a mirror.
I am.
You are a mirror.
I am.
Okay, wonderful. Because one of your clients made a statement that a coach is like having a Krishna next to you and you are Arjun, right? So that's the kind of counseling, wisdom, sharing energy, experience, and so on. You've been through this for a number of years. A coach, whether it's Acharekar, better known because of Sachin Tendulkar, Dronacharya, better known because of Arjun, you must have had some define. We don't need to know the names of people, but talk us through some case studies. What was the before and after story?
So, firstly, understanding anybody requires me to understand as a mirror, when you call it, understand their thought patterns. What we call, the vasanas. Only when I understand their thought patterns, am I able to then go to the next level. So I'll really look at the thought patterns. The second thing I look at is the paradoxes. Often when we are talking, there are conflicts in what we say and what we do. So I will look for that. The next thing I look for. No, you do that. It's right here. The next thing I really look for is obviously first to ask the client, what do you want? And then you go through their strengths. The strengths often we overarch or underutilize because when something works well for us, we go so all out in doing it that we forget that we've overarched it, and that's what happens with many CEOs. So, talking of had a couple of CEOs who were very successful but very task-oriented. Very typical goals, stakeholders, this, that. It's got to get it done, got to make it happen. Somewhere along the way, relationship with the team gets compromised because are you really making time to chat with your team rather than just sit on what did you do and what happened next? So, he was really stuck and he was very stressed. How do I get to the next level in terms of expanding, growing the organization? When he realized that he was not letting go because of his very, what we classify as type A or trying to be in control of everything, wasn't letting go. I asked him, are your people really not that good enough? And I think it was something he'd not asked himself. Started delegating to his people, started communicating, started hosting town halls to even ask them, what do you want? Earlier it was a one-way communication pretty much. Started hosting town halls and saw really, and I worked with him for a good 3-5 years. Another one was, came to me for wanting me to coach his team. Very upset and irritated with, frustrated with his team and saying that you need to figure these people out, help me out. And I said, okay, let's first understand. And I said, okay, I'd love to meet the team. within one interaction or meeting the team, I realized he needed to first get self-awareness. So I said, okay, how about let's just talk through this and I'll share the feedback I've got. Now I take the feedback in a very simple way. I ask for strengths, areas of development, and what could they do differently if they really had to excel at their role. That's it. I just really asked two, three very fundamental questions. So when I laid out his strengths to him, he was like, wow. Then he realized that actually he was in the wrong role. He wasn't really doing his role justice because he didn't. There's something I'm doing wrong with these mics. Am I touching? Yeah.
Switch.
Up karo. नहीं, दोनों ही गए. दोनों ही गए.
The CEO is stopping the mic.
Okay. So I started working with him, worked with him for a while, and that really was so transformational that he went about changing his career completely. And after that, I worked with a lot of people as well. Another, client was someone who came to me and said, I need to take up a regional role, and I really don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what these mics go through. Okay. I really don't know what to do about it, and I'm scared. So I asked her, I said, what was the worst case that will happen to you? She said, I could lose my job. So I asked her, I said, are you so unemployable if you were to lose your job? And she'd never asked herself, can I not get another job? So I think sometimes it's really about asking that one question that where the penny drops.
Zero moment of truth.
Yeah.
Is coaching only for corporate executives?
So firstly, that's where the money is now. But firstly, I think I'll clarify when I say coaching is a process of self-discovery. There's a button loose, hill raha hai, even without my touching it. So coaching is a process of self-discovery, understanding yourself, knowing your truth. Who am I at my core? Really at your core. It's not about your titles. It's not about your roles. It's not about what here, all these various, I worked in this organization, or I'm a man, or I'm a woman. It's really understanding that deepest self. And so coaching therefore is for anyone. Are you willing to explore? I think that willingness is where it becomes possible for people to walk down that path. Are you willing to go that deep in yourself to confront or question your beliefs? That all the social conditioning that we acquire, because we acquire conditioning even to the extent of saying he's my husband is a social role. But he's another soul in my life who's here to as a mirror to my transformation, as a catalyst to my transformation. Now when I see him as that, my entire interaction with him changes completely, because the noise in my head as a spouse shuts down. The expectations change. What I see as, okay, what strengths does he have which A, complement best with me, B, what is it that's frustrating me that means I'm not doing or seeing in myself that I need to do. So each time it's actually a process of self-inquiry. It's not about another. The others are here purely to help us wake up to ourselves and help us grow and expand and be that to another then.
Let's stay put on this self-discovery. It's actually, on hindsight, on completion, it's an easy subject to speak on.
No, the button is a little loose. The mic is, no, it's not that. Each time I have to keep going, switch on and off, and it works then. I figured the trick for it.
So self-discovery after the process is very easy to explain. It's like a chemistry experiment. Through the process, It's gut-wrenching. At IIM Ahmedabad, there is this program workshop called Personal Growth Laboratory, and there's literally a statutory warning below that, which says, go at your own risk. Because you will discover things about yourself which you may not like. So it is about the demons in you, the fears in you, literally like that yoga thing about taking different parts and cleaning it and put it back. And started with you kind of, like you spoke about your husband, understanding each relationship, and you didn't spare any. Talk through the process of what is self-discovery, how long, how stressful, how deep.
So first I'll really start with a very basic space. We are all sensitive human beings, everybody.
Speak up.
Everybody is sensitive to
It's not working.
everybody. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody is sensitive. I think this is getting more difficult for me. I'll just go louder. Everybody is sensitive, everybody has emotions. You can't take those two things out. Now, typically what we do is when someone says something, we get sensitive to it and take it to heart. And we start forming opinions, beliefs, perceptions. And the other thing is that when we are therefore unhappy, we project that emotion on somebody else maybe. We may either get upset with that person itself or project it as a judgment or gossip in the world. What we don't realize is that the other person is simply coming from their perception of life. Now, simple example. When I started graying my hair, I had enough people telling me, you're not even 50, why are you graying your hair? 2 years later, I had the same people come and tell me, wow, you look so graceful, it's so lovely you've grayed your hair and I wish I could do it. Now, who should I believe? You see, that's where the thing comes. If I believe the others, I look ugly as hell. If I believe the ones now, I look graceful. So in that 2-year period, I could either question my entire sense of beauty or I could be perfectly comfortable in understanding that it's a process, just a time lag, it's a choice I've made. I'm okay. So that's what I mean. Now, when you turn that sensitivity inwards, you can actually listen to your inner self. We all have an inner voice, what we call gut instinct, and we can actually listen to it. Now, what happens is the noise of our thoughts is so high, we can't even discern between the two. But when we sit quietly, why pranayam, why yoga, meditation? Because at that moment, the mind is relatively stiller. It's more still. So that's when you can hear it, access it. Now, if you were to access it more frequently, so what is Bhagavad Gita, when we talk of Krishna and Arjuna, what is Bhagavad Gita really saying? Krishna is not the one he's not the one firing the arrows, neither is he telling Arjuna how to do it. Like Achrekar doesn't tell Sachin's a better player end of the day. He's the master player. He knows the game. He's simply showing him where he's getting stuck and where he's not doing what he could do differently or better. So there's so much of potential in us that gets suppressed because of this layer that comes over, that ultimately it's about chipping away little by little by little, and it takes time. It's a time-consuming process, but the world has given us huge number of techniques, tools, whether it is, so if I were to go from I'll go through the 4 yogas. Karma, we all have been given a unique talent to put out in the world. Now, it could be physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, anything. We all have some strength, some uniqueness which we put out into the world. Now, when you act in alignment, when your actions or your sensory faculties are displayed, your talent is displayed in alignment with your core, you are more and more therefore at peace with yourself. Like we say, I love work. Why do you love work? It's easy. And at that time, work doesn't feel like a chore, it's joyful. It's joyful because you're living true to your talent. When you know your core, that Gyan Yoga, who am I? And you live true from there, seeing that the world is as much nothing but there's a oneness and interconnectedness, and you know your core, you understand yourself. There again, your thoughts then become less. So the quality, quantity, and direction of your thoughts improves. Quality in terms of the whole texture of your thoughts. Quantity means the noise in the head, and of course the direction means you become more inward rather than just always blabbering out and just going on talking for the sake, because we don't even realize how much we sometimes talk to prove it, to win, to have the last word. Kuch na kuch chalta rehta hai. Then comes Raj Yoga, meditation, pranayam, breath, basically anchoring in. You have to anchor in because we all, as we grow older, our roles grow. From being a child and a student with parents looking after us, suddenly you're an adult, then you get married, you have a family, then you have grandkids. So life is growing. You need to be able to calmly go through all the transitions very gracefully and ride the waves of life. That's where that helps the building that resilience. Then comes the Bhakti Yoga. The more I see everybody as one, and I understand and I accept my strengths and I accept another's strengths, and I don't see it as a because even if two people are good in finance, someone will be good at one element of it, another element of it, which is why there are so many in a bank and there are so many products that keep coming out. Then the collaboration is very easy. In fact, you welcome collaboration because it helps you let go and grow, and that's what leadership is about letting go, and growing.
It appears to me it's almost like childbearing. There is joy before, there is joy after, but 9 months of labor takes the mickey out of you.
So I'll firstly say, when you go through the 9 months, it's not always bad. You feel the flutters of the baby, which is exciting. You feel the kicks of the baby, which is again exciting. You know you're going to give birth to a baby, again exciting. So there's a lot of excitement. Because every time you unfold, it's like peeling an onion. Every time you discover a new facet of yourself, it's very inspiring. It's absolutely magical to say, hey, I can be a coach, I can be an author also. Oh, I didn't know. Because there's so many simple things. I had this cobweb in my head, I can't be an author because I'm not an English lit student. And I had read all these, Glass Palace and Rohinton Mystery, many books, and all very descriptive, and the language used is very rich and heavy, and Shakespeare in school. I have no Shakespeare or any of them. So when I started writing, I said I want a ghostwriter. But I decided to start penning down, and what I figured was that authenticity has its own value versus perfection. So I said, okay, likhte. So talking of joy, there is no doubt there is pain, but think of it as yet each one goes through childbirth, yet each one has children and grandchildren and so on. The cycle of life continues because the joy we get from it is far more, and it's like you said, the 9 months. So in a lifetime or many lifetimes, the period of pain is so much shorter than the period of joy. And if someone tells you that okay, so here's the thing. We wear high performance shoes, do diets, everywhere there's no guarantee that your performance will be higher or your weight will go down, nothing, but we try it all. We go through the pain. The Bhagavad Gita or the scriptures, the philosophy is the highest guarantee to happiness. What more? If someone tells you that I guarantee you happiness and I guarantee you joy.
Interesting you mentioned about perfection. I've always maintained perfection is an unreal goal, but excellence is a good habit. I can go on, but I'm going to take a little break on my questions, and I'm going to invite the audience in, because there's something to talk about of books and an app, but I'll hold that back to the audience.
Yeah, I have a question. So, of course, you are doing a dream job because you have CEOs knocking your door and say they have a problem. So you look very important to them, very clever. But many a times the CEOs come with their own block of lack of humility. They don't think they are really wrong, but they find there's something missing in their own staff, and you want you to tell them, or you want him to understand what is their problem, not his problem. So how do you deal with that?
So firstly, all of us are accomplished in our field. So the first part of understanding is it's a space of respect. I'm not here to tell anybody where they are wrong or right, because all of us live our life with best intentions and best of efforts. It's simply saying what next and how next, or what different more than anything else. When you start looking at strengths, then you look at accomplishments. So here it is a man, woman, a person who's accomplished, got the strengths. Then you say, okay, what is it that's not, you think, if I look at the whole pattern, what is it that's not working? What is it that you're not doing or could do differently? The thing with people is firstly, I think it's a matter of taking out the time to sit and reflect. When they sit in that space of reflection, they are sharp enough to catch it very quick. You'll ask, depending on the conversation, a question. The question obviously has to be worded sensitively and respectfully. And it depends how, at that point, like even when I'm saying, are you unemployable? You think you can't get a job? I won't ask that question as a judgment. It'll be really put out as a curiosity question. Do you really think you can't get another job? Or something with your qualifications and your accomplishments. So the questions have to be worded a certain way for the person to take charge of their own unfoldment. Because I'm not unfolding, it's their transformation. So I cannot lump my judgments, my thoughts, my to-dos on them. Their goals are designed by them. It's not about, because all of us have our own capacities to do and not do. All of us have our own transformation happens in its own, rhythm. And I cannot determine it. So it's really up to them, and if they can do it, they will. If they can't, they'll come back. Sorry, it's not happening. It's okay.
Yes. No, after Nikhil, I'll come to you, Shan. Yeah, Nikhil.
No, when you have to become a mirror is always shining, and it takes a lot of polishing to get to the shine. Right? You being a mirror for so many people, including you being a mirror for yourself. Tell us a little bit about this transformation from a normal person to becoming a refined mirror, where you're able to see these things in people and be able to guide them.
So, Nikhil,
Did you hear the question? Yeah, thanks.
Nikhil, so first and foremost, as I said, I turned inwards. The biggest thing I did was turn inwards. Then it was a journey of questioning myself incessantly. I was like a person let me put it differently. The day I discovered that I had an inner voice that was my key to living life with happiness, I was like a person possessed. People think कि जब meditation के लिए time निकालेंगे तब self awareness build करेंगे. No, it's not as if my thoughts are switch on and off. My thoughts are all the time. So I questioned myself all the time. I questioned my outcomes. I questioned my emotions. So my triggers were, see our emotions are our first telltales. I questioned my emotions. I questioned my thoughts. Why am I, like success and failure, for instance, is the most common paradigm that we have. Am I successful? Am I not? Am I failing? What do I do with it? Now, in a profession like coaching, when I step in, firstly, the failures are far more because no one understands it. So I have to assess, therefore, for myself, what does my success mean for me? So I decided, okay, my success is, my transformation is my success. It's not just always the outcome, because that is not dependent on me. Failures, I started taking them as lessons. So everywhere I started redefining the beliefs that I had, or the thought, all the social thing, ये failure है, ये success है, ये है, वो है, सब निकालना शुरू कर दिया. The more I emptied myself, then I even questioned, like I said, what are relationships? See, what is confronting you every day is your relationships. Maximum confrontation is with that in life. Questioning that and realizing that everybody is here for a reason. So I accepted that when I accepted everybody is here for a reason, so I accepted the law of coexistence. I can't take it away. I can't wish it away. We love to wish it away. We can't, because I exist on this planet that itself is coexistence. And my breath, so everything is coexistence, and embracing that and saying, okay, if I coexist and then there's a law of, we say, okay, when we ourselves say, you get what you deserve. So there's a law of cause and effect at play. If I plant a mango seed, I'll get a mango tree. I plant a banana seed, I'll get a banana tree. Now, if I therefore plant seeds of judgment and hatred and anger and everything else, I will get that. So I have to make a choice to change what seeds I want to plant around me. So takes a lot to even figure out that I'm judging. बात ही तो कर रहे थे. I started going more silent. I think the biggest shift I brought in myself was, earlier my silence was sulking. Now it was conscious silence. And I started pausing. ऐसे ही नहीं बोल देना. I started pausing, reflecting, thinking. Why am I saying it? What's the purpose of it? How will it even make a difference to the other one? ऐसे क्यों बोल रहे हो? Like, we'll say, you're not looking nice today. I mean, friends में. क्यों बोल रहे हो बाबा? So, simple little things. Why are you? So the less I spoke, the more I conserved my energy. And the more space I had to listen to myself. Then I go for a walk every morning, and when I started this journey, we were living in Malabar Hills at Haveli. My routine was to walk from Haveli to Nariman Point. I would listen to bhajans and I would look around me. I started looking at, one of the very big shifts came looking at street people. I think seeing them, the resilience that they have, I think it made me more grateful for my life. Seeing the glass half full stopped. It made me more grateful for my life. I started looking at the ocean differently, not as the filthy water, but as the depth and as the waves. So I think my whole outlook started changing little by little, where I started seeing things in a very, very different light. And I questioned time as a concept. We look at time as I don't have time. Now, time for goals, who sets goals? You and me, nobody else. Nobody's setting them for us. In our job, yes, but you say yes to it. Nobody's forcing you to say yes to it.
Life is possible. Shalin.
Right. Just a simple question, ma'am. You've already answered 50%, where in terms of being self-anchored, being introspective, being calmer, quiet, all of these are energies that you are developing in order to be able to deliver yourself as an individual as you are. In such a state, when one is in that journey, what drives you as a coach? What's the satisfaction of being a coach?
So the satisfaction is to see the transformation in front of me. It's so joyful to see another get unlocked. And it's like, see, like an architect has joy in creating buildings. For me, this is fulfilling, it's satisfying.
It's a motherly.
No.
I'm glad you asked.
No way in hell. No way, I don't adopt anybody. I don't even get into my son's heads. I'm very clear. In fact, people ask me, don't you get tired and negative and this and that? I get energized working with people because they're not my stories, they're not my thoughts. It's not my life. So I'm here just to hear you out and be that presence to, just for you to reconnect with yourself.
Radish.
I just want to check that you made a mention about failure, where you learn. You use that to progress further. But typically, failure sets back people in their lives. Like many times, it takes them back to different dimensions. Learning from failure is an evolved thinking.
Yeah.
So, who helped you to evolve? Did you have a coach?
So,
Second,
yeah.
did you use any toolkit that you can share with the audience? Because in my opinion, most of the time people get stuck with a failure or a setback in life. That's a crucible moment. So how did you deal with it?
So, my crucible moment of firstly shifting happened when a gentleman from the finance world asked me, is my balance sheet in the black or red? And I didn't have a balance sheet for coaching. So, in that sense, anyway. So, I attended many courses. So, I had a coach. My journey started with a coach, and I had a coach for 15 years. But the most interesting part is, I think the best gift she gave me was, she didn't make herself, she was accessible without always being available. In the sense, I would write emails to her with all my drama. And she would only send me a question back or an exercise and leave me to my own devices. So, because she was based in the US, so break your head. And I think that's what we don't do many times, is we try to help. We don't give another person the space to discover. The second thing I did was I did a lot of study group with Chinmaya Mission. So that was my space for really understanding the spiritual aspect in a very big way. I did start with Landmark, but that was very short. I would give a lot more credit to Chinmaya Mission. Secondly, I read books on leadership, autobiographies. I read any book on spirituality, religion that I could lay my hands on. I watched movies. I watched movies like Invictus, Freedom Fighters, Gandhi, Dead Poets Society. I watched lots of inspirational movies. And picked up from there, and I was reading a book which has stories of lots of entrepreneurs, starting from Disney to Henry Ford and many, many, many more. And what struck out at me was everybody experimented to arrive where they did and failed multiple times. So I think it's just been a question of always experimenting with myself, attending lots of courses, taking support wherever I needed. I have had coaches. Even today, I'll reach out to sometimes Vinita ji, who's from Chinmaya Mission, if I want to think through something, and when I'm hankering over something in my head, and I'll talk it aloud with her. And actually, sometimes now, though, while talking only, I realize I'm hankering. So, so I have always taken support. I think one thing that people, when you said setback, what really is difficult, they're not vulnerable to another. They think vulnerability is a weakness. It's the highest strength that you can, because the more you get into the space of not knowing, the more you learn and discover.
Second part, toolkit.
Toolkit?
Is
We
it
all have a toolkit in our head, in us. But toolkit really, I think there are I didn't use, did I use a toolkit? I think it's just so many courses that I did. I brought in a blend of them in my life. I did neuro-linguistic programming, I did psychometrics, so many different courses, because some were required professionally and they happened, and some were suggested by my coach and I did them. And somewhere I think everything started coming together. But the biggest toolkit I used was myself, in terms of reflecting on myself. I think reflecting, that is invaluable.
And Vaidesh, I also thought that the fact that the point she's been harping upon is every person is unique. If every person is unique, you can't have a standard toolkit. It is a set of leading questions that you start the process with, and hopefully you find the answer.
Because the minute I give a toolkit, I'm trying to fit you somewhere.
Slot you into something.
It's reflection is the best, contemplation is the best toolkit.
Out of 4 yogas that you mentioned, the Raj Gyan, Bhakti and Karma Yoga, which one do you most resonate with? And, or was your inward journey a combination of all?
It's always on, because you're using your senses, your thoughts, your emotions and your energy in every moment. Everything. The faculty of talking is my sensory faculty. The energy I'm using here, it's literally like my thoughts, my emotions, keeping them with myself. Everything is at all times. It's at play at all times. It's just that we don't realize it and consciously work on them. You may start with one more heavily. Like some people enter, so that's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita they say, "Aap kisi bhi taraf se chalo, ultimately you'll come to the center only." But some start from bhakti, some start from Raj Yoga, some from Gyan, and some from Karma. Honestly, all roads lead to the same destination, happiness. It's you choose whichever road, and that road will be full of twists, turns, newness, different. Your journey will be yours, mine will be mine. Each one is their own. There's no right wrong to any of them.
And this caste system in that will mean being judgmental. The moment you say one is this, it's about one's
I
orientation.
always feel that sometimes this is one of them where you resonate with them. It's more important in your life. So I wanted to know if either one of them was like a more important part of your life.
No, I have pretty much.
My last role at the Mahindra. Yes, sir.
Ashu, you talked about life coaching for an individual. Have you done coaching for a group of people?
Lots of times.
So what are the, can you share some experiences of how do you get, let's say, fierce competitors to work together as a group?
So I've worked with many corporate top teams, and the first thing to do is to acknowledge everybody and make sure they acknowledge each other. So
How does that work? I mean,
so one of the first
each other.
exercises I do,
that must be the toughest.
the first exercise I do is, so I remember doing I remember what I did was, when I do with the bankers and all, I keep chocolates and I keep squeezy balls. Whose ever ball has been squeezed the most, they are messed up right now. You will find some ball which has been totally shred to bits. But anyway, in a group workshop, acknowledgement is the first thing you start with, and even with anybody else. I think, like they say, it's a sandwich approach. You get everybody to acknowledge, because what the team loses sight of is how they're contributing to each other. And then it's really the team, you're asking the team, what is it that, so if there's a vision, obviously there's a vision why they're there. What is it that you all could do for it? And you start doing breakouts, or you start doing conversations, and you start asking. I actually do coaching one-on-one on the spot there. In a group of 20, 40, 50, I've done literally on the spot coaching. But when I do it, I have to be very, very mindful of myself as to how I'm asking the question and who I'm asking. So in any group, you have to be aware of the dynamics of the people as to who are the easier to work with. You start with them. It's a very
Physics.
physics.
Lift the easier things.
Use the low-hanging fruits you'll work with. Then you go next, and you leave those who are very clear. And then little by little in the coffee break, people start walking up to you and getting curious. You pick up conversations from there. So it's really weaving it back at them only.
My last role at the Mahindra Group, not my current role, the last role at the Mahindra Group was Chief Risk Officer. So wearing that hat, and she went on talking about becoming quiet, becoming silent. I worried who was going to speak at Talk the Walk next. She's written a set of books. I am freedom, I am life, I am love, I am perfection. Who's the I?
I know you asked me, it's either a person who's very egoistic writing it or the person who's gone very deep in. So clearly the I is not the ego. The I is the bigger I. It's my ode to the bigger I. I am, as we call it, I am that. When we say that's who we all are. Each title of mine is a description of that. It's I am freedom. The inner self is always free. The inner self is always abundant. The inner self is always love. And the inner self is always perfect. We look for external perfection. The world is also perfect as it is because it's designed for our transformation. It's not meant to be as we want it to be. Because otherwise, if each one wanted it to be our way, anyway we are at war with each other, we'd be even more at war with each other. So it's designed for our transformation.
You're now working on an app. It's almost a fashion statement that we'll have an app. What is it about?
So that's been a very big leap of faith for me. My app is called I Am Playbook to Happiness because the inner voice is the playbook to happiness. And my books are, like you can say, because they're all inspired books, they are the manuals in a most contemporary way, where I've distilled the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita in the most contemporary way through my life. Because obviously I could write it through myself. I've not written any shlokas, nothing. I'm not a scholar. The app mirrors the journey to happiness. And I have divided the chapters from my books as well as the poems into the 4 yogas. And I'm now writing the book I Am Happiness. So that the app is each one, I've put videos in it and a lot of articles. There's a lot of videos which give, what is my experience or insight on it. And it's up to you to take your journey on it, how you take it, what you make of it. There are topics and chapters and poems, and then there are little tasks, simple things like go have coffee with a friend, something we keep saying we'll do it, but we don't. Or reflect on your strengths and weaknesses. So little things which I've done for myself, which I over the years did with myself. I put them into the app, and you assess yourself. There's nobody assessing you. You assess yourself because your inner journey is your own. You are your judge, and you are your you reward yourself. There's nobody here telling you whether you're happy or not happy. So you assess yourself, and that's really how this app works. My intent is to inspire as many people as possible to get onto a journey of happiness, really.
I think that's exceptionally noble. The first step really is if all of us can get inspired to get to know ourselves better and start the self-discovery. Ashu, thank you so much. Wonderful. Next month, Hopefully, we should have Dr. Taran Gyanchandani as our guest, and we'll send you details on that. As you would have noticed, we moved to 7 to 8. There was a request for 6:30, a request for 7:30. Find the answer in the middle, not the extreme. So I picked 7 to 8. That's what we'll try and do once a month again. Thank you so much for being here.